The rich young man walks away sad when Jesus tells him that his wealth is keeping him from perfection. He could see what Jesus was telling him was true, but he wasn't yet able to follow through with letting go of the things that made him unhappy. He wanted to be free from greed, but was too attached to his wealth and the things that it was buying him to be able to place the center of his life and all of his trust in God. That's actually a pretty good summary for what sin does in our lives. It makes it very hard for us to make the decisions that we know are good for us and that will make us genuinely happy. Because we know that Jesus is asking us to be kind, forgiving, generous, and courageous. Not because it helps him in any way, but because that's who we were meant to be. That's how we're going to be most truly ourselves. And when we live those virtues, then we are genuinely happy. Those are the moments we look back on with pride and joy. Yet, at the same time, we often find it very challenging to live that way. In the moment, choosing to do the right thing is often very hard, and it requires sacrifice, or might be misunderstood by the people around us whose approval we want to have. That's why the example and the intercession of the saints, such as Saint Bernard, who we celebrate today, can be so helpful. When we are struggling to get ourselves to live out our good intentions, it is so useful to have the saints in our minds. When we see how joyful Saint Bernard was despite living a simple and rigorous life as the Abbot of Clairvaux, whose life was so simple, and despite the way he could have lived a lavish lifestyle, he instead chose to focus on living love. So much so that when the Pope visited the monastery, the papal court was surprised because rather than throwing a big feast like most people did, St. Bernard and his monks had a simple meal of a little bit of fish and a little bit of juice, and impressed the visitors with the fact that they weren't trying to impress them. In the same way, that gives us the assurance that whatever the Lord is calling us to is going to make us more fulfilled, because we see his joy in living out a virtuous and simple life. We recognize that that same joy is available to us. We also know that we can ask for St. Bernard to pray for us. We can ask him to support us as we are going through whatever we're going through, because we know that he faced a lot of the same temptations and weaknesses that we have, but was able to overcome them by the power of grace. And we know his prayers can do the same things in us and for us. Today and every day, we are facing Jesus. And he is challenging us to do something. He is inviting us to do one thing in order to be able to follow him more closely. And that means we are placed with an important choice each and every day. Do we hold on to the things that we have now and walk away sad, knowing that we're not strong enough to grab a more perfect happiness, an eternal joy that the Lord has prepared for us? Or do we turn to the example and intercession of Saint Bernard and ask for his help in opening ourselves up to the grace just as he did, to be able to hold on to whatever gift the Lord wants to give us today, whatever way he's calling us to be more perfect, by embracing a virtue and living a life of simple love.